Hello everyone, welcome to our channel CodeChef. Today we are going to solve a problem known as fruit basket, which is a cakewalk difficulty level and it requires no prerequisites. So let's start with the problem statement first. There is a teacher who brought a fruit basket which is going to contain only three types of fruits: apples, mangoes and oranges for his three students A, B, C. Now student A knows some value A, student B knows some value B, student C knows some value C regarding the count of fruits in the basket. Like more precisely, value A is the total number of apples and mangoes in the basket. Value B is the total number of mangoes and oranges in the basket. And value C is the total number of oranges and apples in the basket. Now since teacher brought it, he also knows a value D. And the value D is the total number of fruits he has in the basket. That is the total number of apples, oranges and mangoes in the basket. Now you have to determine the exact number of apples, mangoes and oranges in the basket separately. That is, our task is to determine that how many apples, mangoes and oranges are there in the basket separately. So now let's see how we can solve this problem. But before that, let's see what is the input and output for the problem. So the first line of the input is going to contain a variable t, which is going to show us how many test cases we are having in this problem. That is, this is a multi-test case problem. And now for each test case, we have a single line of input which will contain four integers a, b, c, d. Now for the output purpose, we have to output in the single line the number of apples and mangoes and oranges, and we have to make sure that the order of the output is followed. That is, we have to first output the number of apples and then we have to output the number of mangoes and then we have to output the number of oranges. Now what are the constraints for the problem? So the constraint is t value will lie between 1 and 100. ABCD value is going to lie between 0 and 1000. And there is also one line given here that the solution for the problem is always going to exist. So now let's see how we can solve this problem. So let us assume that x is the number of apples in the basket, y is the number of mangoes in the basket, and z is the number of oranges in the basket. Now we can express our value a, b, c, d in the terms of these x, y, z. Like we know that a is the total number of apples and mangoes which is present in the basket. That is, a is simply the sum of x and y. Similarly, b is the total number of mangoes and oranges which are present in the basket. So b is the sum of y and z. And similarly, c is the sum of x and z value. Now, we also have a value d, which is the total number of fruits which is present in the basket. That is, d is the sum of x, y and z value. Now our problem simply boils down to these set of equations in which we have to find the value of x, y, z independently. In which we have to find the value of x, y and z separately. So we can find these values using these set of equation, and in the constraint it is given that the solution is always going to exist. So we need not to consider the case in which the x or y or z value is going to be negative or fractional, because we can't have fractional number of fruits or the negative number of fruits in the basket. So we simply have to solve the equation keeping in the mind that the solution is always going to be exist and the x and y is going to have some integral positive number. So let's solve this set of equations. The one way in which we can find the value of x, y and z is simply by subtracting the equation 1, 2, 3 respectively from equation 4, and then we will get the missing unknown variable independently. Like if we subtract the equation 1 from equation 4, we are going to find the value of z as d minus a. And when we will subtract equation 2 from equation 4, we are going to find the value x as d minus b. And when we will subtract equation 3 from equation 4, we are going to find the value of y as d minus c. Now let's verify these values on the test cases. So let's write like what we have concluded from before. We had x equal to d minus b, y as d minus c, and z as d minus a. So let's apply these set of equation for finding the value of x, y, z on these test cases. So we have two test cases for the tests. For the first test case, we have a value as 7, b value as 9, c value as 8, and d value as 12. So when we apply these set of equation, x value is going to be d minus b, that is 12 minus 9, that is 4. Y value is going to be d minus c, that is 12 minus 8, that is 4. Z value is going to be 12 minus c, that is z value is going to be 12 minus a, that is 12 minus 7 equal to 5. And for the second test case, we can similarly find the value of x, y, z as x is going to be d minus b, that is 9 minus 8, 1. Y is going to be d minus c, that is 9 minus 7 equal to 2. And z is going to be 9 minus a, that is 9 minus 3 equal to 6. That is 1 to 6, which is same as given as sample output. So our set of values run correct for these given sample input. So now let's see how we can implement this solution. So what we have to do is we have to first take the input of number of test cases. Now for each test case, what our code will be like, we have to first take the input of A, B, C, D, and then we have to calculate X, Y, Z by simply using the equations we derived before, and then we have to simply output X, Y, Z, keeping in mind that we have to maintain the output order. Now the space complexity and time complexity for the solution is going to be O of 1 per test case. Because we are doing some constant number of operations here and also storing the constant number of variables. So let's see how we can implement these solutions in C++ and Python. Now let's have a look on the C++ implementation of the problem. So here we are taking the input of t variable, which is showing us the number of test cases we are going to have. Then for each test case, what we are doing, we are taking the input of A, B, C, D in the order, and then we are applying the set of equations to calculate the value of x, y, z, and then after we are printing the x, y, z value in a new line. So now let's see the Python implementation of the code. Again, we are taking the number of test cases input, and then for each test case, we are taking the input of ABCD value, and then we are applying the set of equations for solving the value of XYZ, and then we are printing the value XYZ. Now let's have a look on some error code. What we can do is we can simply match up the order of the input. Like it is mentioned in the input clearly that we have to first take the value of A, then B, then C, then D. But here what we are doing, we are first taking the value of B and then A, then C and D, which is definitely going to give us the wrong value when we will solve for the value of X, Y and Z. The other mistake we can have is we are not following the order of the output. Like we are first printing the number of mangoes and then printing the number of apples and then printing the number of oranges. While it was clearly mentioned in the output that we have to output the variables in the order. So we have to keep in the mind that we are taking the input and output in the right order, and we are applying the right set of equations to calculate the value of the number of mangoes, apples and oranges. So that's it for the video guys. Thanks for watching.